Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Oftentimes, when I'm in the field, meaning when I'm on site at various client locations, be they companies or school districts, people often inquire, how do you become an education consultant? What exactly is an education consultant? And those questions actually come from a lot of administrators and teachers. So today I thought I'd spend our time talking about what exactly is an education consultant. So for those of you that had those questions and those of you that may have an interest, you'll be able to make more of an informed decision. Okay. So as educators, we all have a vast skill set. So there are consultants that provide services in a number of our skills that are transferable. So as teachers, instructional coaches, administrators, this is just a short list of some of our skill set that can be used in an education consulting role. And so, of course, elementary school teachers have the greatest depth of talent. I'm just joking. That's me there when I began my career teaching fifth grade, and I had to education consulting. There isn't just one education consultant. There are multiple types of education consultants, just as there are multiple types of classroom teachers or administrators. So you have fifth grade, sixth grade teachers, seventh grade teachers. We have elementary, we have secondary teachers, we have those that teach different content areas. We have administrators that are on the elementary or the secondary level, those that may work at the school level or the district level. So when we think about education consultants, there's not just one type of education consultant. So you may be an education consultant that focuses on any of these lists that you see here that align with the skill set of which I spoke. You may be a consultant that helps a company design their products and services. Or maybe you're an education consultant that focuses on curriculum writing. When I began my career, I was an education consultant that focused on professional learning services and training, professional development, professional learning services. That pendulum swings in terms of how we label it. But that was the area upon which I focused. So there are consultants that serve in multiple roles for different types of organizations. And so you may work as an education consultant for an education curriculum company, for even the federal government. I worked as an education consultant for a consulting firm that was excuse me, providing services for the Department of Defense, training military servicemen and women on how to effectively transition from the military to private sector roles. And so I was an education consultant for them, to also working as an education consultant for the National Education Association. And so my focus in that consulting role was more aligned with assisting them with aligning a product and service that they were rolling out nationwide. Oftentimes they need our expertise before they roll out or launch a product in our K-12 schools, because we often know what's going to work and what's not going to work in our schools. I've also done consulting for children's toy companies. And some of you that have watched my other videos are familiar with that. But my role also involved assisting them with aligning their product and services with sound pedagogy, as well as ensuring that they were familiar with the life of an educator and what that looks like, or the day in the life of an educator. There were some companies that wanted to roll out 3 days of training, 8 hours a day. That's not going to fit for an educator. We can't be away from our classrooms or our schools for 3 consecutive days. And so I served as an education consultant, assisting them with developing their professional development training. I've also served as a professional development consultant, focusing on education policy, because I have a background in school law. So when new legislation rolls out, so from No Child Left Behind to the Elementary Student Succeeds Act, all of those things. I served as a consultant for various Wall Street firms, so on and so forth. And this isn't to be braggadocious. I'm basically stating, as an educator, we have that vast skill set. So we can serve as an education consultant in multiple capacities and for different types of organizations. And that's what you'll see in this list here. In terms of classifications, there are education consultants that are full-time employees, those that may be part-time as well. You may have some education consultants, you'll see internal or external. So if you're searching for education consulting roles online, of course, if it's internal, then you're working for that company, you're an employee of that company. If it's external, then you may be a freelance, or sometimes you'll see the word per diem, where you're compensated at a daily rate. And I'm going to dive a little deeper into what that looks like. And we're going to focus on one role. Okay, are you with me? If you could give me a thumbs up, let me know if you have any questions before we move on. Okay, so the key takeaway is there's not just one type of education consultant. An education consultant can serve in multiple capacities and may focus on one or two skill sets or one or two competencies. Professional development and training. You could be a professional development and training consultant. You could be an education policy consultant, so on and so forth. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so let's talk about what that looks like for one particular role. So as mentioned, I began my career, my second consulting role was as a professional development consultant, or K through 12 professional learning consultant. As you see, they're basically a trainer. And in that role, I worked for various software companies. Okay, so let's just take the role of an education consultant that focuses upon K through 12 professional learning. Are you with me? So you'll see those columns there. So in this role, you could either be an employee, you could be an independent consultant, or you can be a business owner. Okay, and let's dive a little deeper into each of those classifications. So as an employee, as a professional development consultant, or an education consultant that focuses on professional learning, that would typically be your starting range, 60K to 75K. You with me? If you move over to the next column, you'll see in that same role, if your classification is an education consultant, an independent contractor, or freelance, which means the company is the middleman. You basically work for yourself, but the company is the middleman and may set up training sessions for you to deliver. So for example, one education company with whom I've worked sold their product and service, a literacy product, to several school districts. And so when schools needed that training, the company set up that training, and then they contacted me to see if I was available to deliver that service, right? And I had the ability to say yes or no, that I'm available. So I had the right to determine my schedule, and then I was compensated on a daily rate. So on average, you'll see that range there from 300 to 1,000 a day, just depending on your experience. Okay, you with me? Okay, and so when we think about that classification as an independent contractor, freelance, again, the company is the middleman, you deliver those services. But also, as employees, we're accustomed to that W-2 form where they take out our taxes and all of those things. Some companies put you on a 1099 form. And some of you that have done freelance work may be familiar with that. But it's basically you're responsible to pay your taxes, which you can do quarterly or at the end of the year. So instead, in January, when we get those W-2s, is that right? W-2s, W-4s, when we receive that form, you would get a 1099. And that 1099 would calculate or list all of your wages. However, there's no taxes that are taken out. And so you have to pay taxes on your wages. And so one thing that I did to help me so that I wasn't hit at the end of the year, I had two separate bank accounts. And so I had a bank account where all of the funds were delivered for that day. Let's say you made $500 to $700 a day. Sometimes you're paid based on your biweekly or paid at the end of the month. I put that entire amount, I may have worked 10 to 15 days, in my bank account, and then I estimated the tax on that and then saved that in another account. So at the end of the year, those funds were available. You with me? Okay, so let's go down the list and focus on those two columns, the employee and the independent contractor and freelance consultant. You with me? So when we look at health benefits, an employee receives health benefits, but an independent contractor does not. So you'd have to seek your own health benefits. And so those are things that you would have to research on your own. With the healthcare exchange now, healthcare rates are less expensive than they were in the past. So you would have to pay your own health insurance. An expense account, yes. So for most employees, you would receive an expense account, and you would need an expense account because your role may involve travel. So as you recall, I said in this role, you're delivering training to multiple schools that may be in different locations. And so you would have a car allowance where you may need to rent a car if you're traveling and you're flying elsewhere, or paying for mileage on your automobile. You with me? And so at one time, I think it's 50 to 55 cents per mile. The company pays you for that. That's as an employee. As an independent contractor, and let me go back. As an employee, they will probably end up giving you an American Express card or some type of credit card to take care of those things. As an independent contractor, they may not provide you with an Amex card or a credit card. And so you would have to absorb that cost, and then they would reimburse you. So they would pay you for all of your travel. And some companies will pay for your flight and those large expenses, but like maybe your hotel, which some will pay on the front end. But, for your renting a car and for your gas, and those things, they may not pay for that up front. They reimburse you. They also, as a part of your per diem, right? So you're getting paid on a daily basis. You're earning wages, I should say, on a daily basis, which you may bill them at the end of the month to receive. They also give you a per diem for meals. And so they will pay you for your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner and reimburse you. And so just depending on the rate, that can vary from $50 to $60 or $70 a day that they give you each day for meals. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that next column you see, right to determine your workload. So as I mentioned, the company is the middleman. So they determine, they set up the training for you as an employee as well as an independent contractor, right? And you go deliver those services. As an employee, they can send you anywhere at any time. 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week, depending on what you signed up for, so to speak. But as an independent contractor and freelance, you have the right to determine your workload. So you can say yes or no, that you are available or you're not available, so on and so forth, because basically you are your own boss in that role. Okay, you with me? And so one of the great things about being an independent contractor is that you do have the freedom and flexibility to accept an assignment or not. On the other end, you have to think about the ebb and flow of work that's available. So education consultants as independent contractors, there may be a lot of work the first 3 or 4 months of the year, back to school months. So from, I'd say, August, September, October, 1st of November, and then it slows down a bit, and then it picks up again. Are you with me there? So it will pick up again in mid-January, and then all the way through about, I'd say, around the 1st of May, and then testing time comes. So depending on if you're able to negotiate a key rate, a good rate, so to speak, there are some people that don't mind having that break in between. Some people work hard and heavy, so to speak, for the first 3 months, and then do something else. I've had some friends that have made their salary in 3 to 4 months and then did something else. Others, it's just depending. So It depends on the company, right? It also depends on your daily rate and what you negotiate in your contract. So when you do join or partner with an organization to provide professional learning services as an independent contractor, you would negotiate your rate accordingly, okay? And I've addressed that question regarding a set schedule, okay? But if we move to this last column, a business owner, some of you may launch your own corporation, your company, an LLC, or an S Corp, C Corp, or what have you, and you provide services directly to the school. So you cut out the middleman, you cut out the company, the nonprofit organization, the government organization, so on and so forth, and you provide that service directly to, for example, that school district. And so in the center, I provided initial training, launch training, data analysis training, right, for an education company. They were the middleman and set everything up. I was basically selling their brand, supporting their brand. As a business owner, you're creating your own product and your own services. Are you with me? And selling your brand, so there's no middleman, and the rate is much higher. In the market, last time it was varying between 1,000 to 2,500 a day for training, I'd say 25 to 50 people. And that, again, could vary. But it's your own brand, so you'd have to do your own advertisement, so on and so forth. You with me? Does that make sense? So as an education consultant that focuses on professional learning, those are three classifications. You could either be an internal employee, you could be an independent contractor or freelance where you're paid on a daily rate, so to speak, or a business owner where there's no middleman and you contact the school directly to provide those services. Does that make sense? With me? Okay. All right. So let's move forward. If you want to learn more about how you can transition or as an independent contractor or freelance, check with us about scheduling a complimentary consultation, but let's move on and I'll give you those details in just a moment. So there are multiple avenues to how do you actually become an education consultant. So as you recall at the beginning of our session, I talked about the plethora of skills and the strengths that we have as an educator. So the first thing you want to do is think about what's something that I enjoy doing. Do I enjoy the training and facilitation aspect, or do I want to become a curriculum writer, a standards alignment? Do I want to assist someone with developing a product, so on and so forth? When I began, I kind of toggled between the two. So I was a facilitator and I delivered content, but then I also helped companies develop and align their product, as you recall, with best pedagogy and the logistics of the school. Are you with me? And best practices in training educators, okay? So think about those skills that you would want to utilize. And once you target those skills, ensure that you're staying abreast of trends in education, through reading various periodicals, so online reading, so on and so forth. If you've subscribed to certain magazines like ASCD, Education Leadership, so on and so forth. And I read quite a bit. Because one of the areas upon which I focus and my niche is education policy. So I subscribe to various education magazines and I take time. I set time typically every week to read something in relation to education and trends in education, okay? Also, once you target your niche, your fit, and what you enjoy the most, then that's when you begin to develop your search strategy, okay? And so some of you that attended my last session, we talked about how over 60% of opportunities are not advertised on websites, they're not publicized. And so you have to search for those in what we call hidden opportunities. And what I recommend, if there are companies in which you have an interest, go directly to their website and see what they have available. For those of you that are currently working within a school, if there's a product that's in your school, type of textbook that's in your school, education technology, if there are people that come to your district and train like in SEL, PBIS, so on and so forth, and that's something that you're interested in doing, then jot down the name of that company and try to connect with that individual as well, because they may be a good resource. Of course, you're not going to approach them and say, hey, I want to join your company. Can you give me a job? So on and so forth. But you could approach them and say, I may be retiring soon. And so I just want to learn more about the industry outside of the school system. Would you have a few minutes sometime just to chat about that? Can I email you or contact you about that and get their business card? If they don't have their business card, then it's sometimes effective to have your own business card. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can get something from, what's that place called? Vistaprint, with just your name, your contact information, your email address. I wouldn't recommend giving your phone number unless you really know that person, but your email address so they can contact you as well. But it's also good to get their information as well, even if you have to jot it down. Okay, you with me? So those are your first steps to launching a career in education consulting. Next, there are multiple paths in terms of the type of education consultant that upon which you'd want to focus. So we talked about those 3 different types: an internal employee, freelance or independent contractor, or a business owner. So think about the path. What is the best fit for you? Do you want to start as an employee and then transition to an independent contractor, right, where you get paid on a daily rate, and then a business owner? Think about those things. What I've suggested for some of my clients is beginning as an employee for a moment, or beginning as an independent contractor, because you're able to build your brand and your reputation by aligning yourself with the company. Are you with me? So you're going into these schools, although you're training and you're representing that company's brand, these schools are getting to know you. They're getting to know your skill set, right? Your ability and your value. Once you develop those connections and relationships, then transition to, owning your own business and providing services to them, because they know who you are, right? You've developed key contacts, and then begin working directly with the schools if you choose to do that. You can work as by yourself, or you could even think about hiring your own team to work with you, to work directly at the schools also. And once you begin working with those schools, if you want to build like a global following, think about also speaking at conferences, at a breakout session, or as a keynote. Maybe you may not get a role as a keynote initially because you're new, but delivering a small breakout session at those conferences that we often attend as educators. You with me? Okay. And then lastly, if you're interested, think about, becoming an author and getting your book out there, which is also going to help you build your brand and what I call scale your brand. So grow your brand as well. And you can deliver face-to-face meetings and those things as well, or face-to-face training or virtual training. So once you're known, are you with me? Once you're known, the sky's basically the limit. I've worked with companies that have heard about me in London, go figure, because I was able to develop my brand. So initially I toggled between being an independent consultant, you with me, and being an employee to build my brand, build my reputation, so schools would know the quality of my work, as well as nonprofit organizations and government organizations. And then I was able to scale and launch my own business. Okay, so there are multiple paths that you can take, to becoming an education consultant. Okay, questions about that? We're almost done. Questions? Okay, so those key takeaways: there are multiple types of education consultants, as we spoke about. There's not just one education consultant. So you may be an education consultant that focuses on professional learning, an education consultant that focuses on curriculum writing, standards alignment. There are some people that do both or hold multiple contracts. And those are the industries that I mentioned that hire education consultants. Again, you see the different types of classifications that you can hold. You with me? And so it just depends on your interest, your level of comfort, your budget, so on and so forth. Okay. And that's just a suggested path. if you're thinking about becoming a business owner and cutting out the middleman, align yourself with a company to build your brand and your reputation. Okay? And then think about flying solo. Because if you fly solo initially, you're going to have to use a lot of your funds and your resources to market yourself as well. So you think about travel expenses involved, so on and so forth. Chasing after invoices, billing, schools, going through that entire process. So just weigh what works for you and think about that. So which classification is a fit for you? Okay. And if you need help just learning more about education consulting and determining your fit, feel free to schedule a complimentary consultation with us. So if you go to our website, broilsconsulting.com, in the main menu, you'll see a tab that reads Schedule a Consultation. If you scroll down, maybe midpoint, you'll see a lady with headphones. And then there's a blurb that reads Schedule a complimentary 15-minute consultation. And if we run over to about 20 to 25 minutes, that's fine too. But one of us can assist you with directing your steps if you have an interest in doing so. Okay? But as educators, as mentioned, I'm our biggest cheerleader because we have a huge skill set as well. And so an education consultant oftentimes is an easy transition. And some people begin to transition as they're working within those roles. There are administrators and teachers that hold on to their role and maybe do consulting part-time as curriculum writers or during the summers when those opportunities are available. So those are things to ponder. Okay. Any questions? Yep, absolutely. So if you go to broilsconsulting.com, you'll see in the main menu, schedule a consultation. You'll have access to our calendars. And so you can pick a time that works for you and the aligned consultant that works with us. Okay. And so again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Take care. Bye-bye.